So I got a couple really interesting interviews from German veterans, either like that they have told to their families or that they have written down in a diary somewhere like that. One that comes to mind right away is a guy who, to my knowledge, is still alive. He was part of the Hitler Youth in Berlin at the end of the war. Ended up, it was like him and his little brother. So they were 10 and like 8 with like Panzerfaust, shooting T-34s and stuff like that. And they lost the war, obviously. And then the bulk of the story is talking about how much of a struggle it was to live in Germany after the war. And the guy wrote down the story about how he and his little brother broke onto a Soviet train because they knew there would be food on there. And then like one of the guards caught them and was beating the little brother. And then the older brother, the guy who wrote the story, stabs him in the back. And then he was like, there's still one more Nazi in Berlin, And this guy is still a guy, like to my knowledge, who was still like heiling Hitler to his dying breath. He was one of those guys.
It's like hardcore, yeah.
Yeah, like a hardcore Nazi. But that's crazy. Like picture being 10 years old during the Battle of Berlin, just shooting T-34 tanks.
Yeah.
Another one was Mr. Meckling, just talking about his experiences in Stalingrad, just like how they would like walk the line in the mornings after night, and like 1 in 6 guys would just be frozen solid.
Jesus.
And it would be like that every day. And it's just so interesting to think about what that must have been like. And I got a taste of it interviewing Ukrainians in Azovstal. I got that feeling of what it must have been like to be encircled, slowly starving, freezing, just morale is just out the window, you know. And interviewing the Germans or documenting their stories is always kind of a thrill for me because it's a side you never hear about.
Yeah.
We've seen like plenty of movies and books from our perspective, but you don't hear too much about the Germans because they're the bad guys, Like one of my favorite miniseries is it's called Generation War, and it's like Band of Brothers, but from the German perspective.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a German show or is it?
Yeah, it's a German show, and it's like I think it's like 3 episodes or something like that. Each episode is like an hour and a half long, and it's incredible. It's like this. These 2 brothers. One of them is an officer who had like fought in France and stuff like that, and the other one's like this scared little boot. And they like kind of end up switching roles of how the little brother becomes like this total badass during the Battle of Kursk and all that stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. You should definitely watch it. Well, it used to be on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Check it out.
But yeah, the Germans, there's another story I was thinking about. Losing my train of thought here. Oh, there was a German paratrooper who is fighting in Italy, who was comparing his experience to like his like level of combat experience to the level of combat experience of the Americans. And he was just saying like all around we are just better soldiers than they are.
Than the Germans? Like in World War II?
In World War II.
Really?
So this...
That's surprising because I've always heard the Germans were like a little more better trained.
He was saying from his perspective as like a German paratrooper at the Battle of Monte Cassino, he thought they were better soldiers than the Americans. He's like, their advantage is just material.
Oh, okay.
Like they've got endless artillery, airstrikes, naval cannons, whatever. And he's like, but like as far as like soldiering, like we are much better than they are. But he still said like he had a respect for the Americans down the hill because it's like it's got to be rough getting slaughtered every day.
Yeah.
And he's like they still came up every single day, and it's cool to see how like the bad guys, are still human beings. Like they still fear, they still feel courage, happiness, love, same things we do. But seeing him respect an enemy, it's just you don't see too much of that, especially in like modern warfare. Like you'd never hear like a Ukrainian and a Russian like saying they respect each other. So I think a lot of these thoughts come afterwards. That's like 3 German stories that I've really found that I really liked.
Yeah. That's nuts though. That's pretty wild. I mean, like, so that one guy, the one that you did interview, how was it like, I don't know if the questions you did ask, but what did he mention all? What was like coming to the U.S. after World War II. You know, like he's he fought the U.S. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, now he's like, I'm dying here, like, you know, on U.S. soil.
So he had pretty like warm feelings to the United States because like he had surrendered to the Soviets. And he spent like a long time as a prisoner of war.
Okay.
And then when he got out, he didn't realize that his whole family was dead.
Oh, really?
Like his sister was dead, his brother was dead, and his parents were dead. And he didn't like know that until he was released in like 1954 or something like that. And so he was like, there's nothing for me in Germany.
Yeah.
You know, and so he'd heard about all these Germans who had gone to the United States. He packed up, moved to Minnesota, like somewhere near here, you know.
Yeah.
And then
Northeast.
Yeah.
I mean, Northeast is like German territory.
And then,
or used to be.
And then moved to my hometown, raised a family there, and been there ever since.
Yeah.
He was just nice old Mr. E. Never knew he was this like badass German veteran who had been in street battles.
What's that? I wonder what the conversation's like in the bar trying to pick up chicks. You know what I mean?
Like he's collecting the veterans benefits. For he's going to get his free meal at Applebee's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he's like, I was on the other side. I'm still a veteran.
Yeah, it was World War II. It's World War II. Let's not get specific. Yeah. Well, even back in the 50s, if he's like coming over, like starts a family, like what's that conversation like? Unless there's other Germans there.
Yeah, there's like a lot of Germans in the Midwest. So like,
that's true.
It was probably pretty easy for him to assimilate.
German population.
And then he was a farmer, so it's like spending all his time on a farm anyway.
Exactly. So. Yeah. It's kind of it's funny to think about that when. Well, I think the funny joke is all the high ranking Nazis go to like don't ask an Argentinian why they're blonde or blue haired. You know what I mean? Like that there's like way too much. And by the way, I want to go down there. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I guess there's just a bunch of like blonde Argentinians.
Yeah, well there's like a community though. So it's not just like, oh, there's some random like there's like a town that like celebrates Germany. Like it's like I don't remember what it's called, but that I've heard of it. Basically, there's like a community of like of former Nazis. That,
there's
it's like
a descendants of SS war
pretty
criminals.
much. Yeah. It's like there was actually my wife. It's hilarious. One of her old coworkers, her son, the coworker's son, was getting married to an Argentinian, but she was like a U.S. Argentinian or whatever. But she was like blonde hair, blue eyed. And I was like, are you serious? And Amanda goes, yeah. And I go,
what's his last name?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or no, what's hers? So it was her. And so it was like, and she was like, yeah, it's kind of weird. I was like, do you know why she's blonde hair, blue eyed and Argentinian? She's like, no. And I was like, because a lot of the Nazis escaped and went to Argentina. And she's like, oh my God. And then Amanda didn't ask or something. She goes, but then she came back. She goes, yeah, they just don't talk about that side of the family.
Funny you bring that up. So years ago when I was single, I met this girl on Tinder and I was kind of like seeing her a little bit.
Yeah.
And we got on the conversation of, military history being me. And I asked her if she had anyone in her family who fought in the Second World War. Turns out I never connected the dots, because I thought, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Her one of her I don't remember what the relation was, but she was related to Rudolf Hess, like Adolf Hitler's right-hand man.
Holy shit.
The guy who flew to Britain to try to negotiate a peace deal between Germany and Britain against Hitler's wishes. So Hitler kind of disowned him after that, but he was in the Nuremberg trials and all that stuff. But her last name was Hess. I never connected the dots that they could be related. And she's like, yeah, that's like my something. We don't really talk about it, but I'm related to him.
Yeah, we don't really talk much about it.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
What are the odds? I'm dating a celebrity.
Yeah. I always love the joke that Dwight has on The Office. He goes, I was trying to visit my extended family down in Argentina, but the Shoah Foundation protested it. And it's such a deep joke that unless you get it, you're like, what are you talking about?
Some good history nerd.
Yeah,
joke
exactly.
Right there.
I was laughing my ass off when I remember hearing about that.